Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 ducks. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon. Hey everyone, welcome to You Probably Right podcast. My name is MCM, and just so happy that you joined in today. It's cool. You joined in. Yes, you joined in. I'm going to go through some questions. This is going to be a crash course on parenting. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to hit everything. You can leave a message on the pod if you would like to ask a question. Remember, this podcast is mainly brought to you by Spotify or Spotify for Podcasters. So you can go to Spotify for Podcasters and you can type in You're Probably Right podcast, and I'm pretty sure my face will pop up in orange, big orange thumbnail, and you can leave a question there if you have a question. Now, I don't know everything. Obviously, nobody does, but I certainly don't. And I just want to put that out there that this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. I wanted to go through a few different things. First, when I thought about doing this podcast, I thought about ways that, say, a parent or maybe a teacher or someone who works with children could possibly maybe question a child, maybe who had gone through something, or maybe someone, maybe a child is going through something, and you're not a psychologist, or you're not a social worker, you're not a social service worker, you're just someone who is interested in helping a child. Maybe it's your child. So first I was going to go through something, maybe the 5, basic things that you would like to get to know about a child and ways that you can try to start conversation. And that was going to be first general well-being and daily life. You just kind of inquire about that. And then maybe you'd go into second, interests and passions. And third, emotional insights and stress management. Fourth, achievements and challenges, right? And the fifth would have been expressions and support, how they get their support or where they feel their support. But within that, there are, in most of those headings, I guess, would be 4 to 5 questions that you would ask to just explore the situation with the child without making them feel this way or that way, just trying to get them to open up about what's going on in general. Because sometimes, us as parents or us as adults, around kids all the time, sometimes you don't have time because you're dealing with adult things, so you miss a lot of things. And it's sad, as a parent, looking back, having older kids and still having a younger child, you miss things. And the older you get, the more you realize how many things, no matter how good of a parent you thought you were, or if you thought you were a bad parent, surprise, surprise, there's probably a whole bunch of other stuff you missed out as well. So yeah, I wanted to get into that, but I decided to do it a little bit different. I'm going to answer some questions. So I have probably about 20 questions here, and I'm just going to do my best to answer them. I'm going to do it like if somebody just asked me on the spot. So the questions may not be perfect, but I'm hoping not the answers may not be perfect. Maybe the questions, obviously, but I'm just gonna kind of go through them. I got this. I got the questions all typed out here, and I'm just gonna do my best off the cuff. Remember, this is not a Christian podcast, but it is a podcast by a Christian, so that's where my values come from. The 66 books of the Bible, my belief in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Everything is from that standpoint, but of course, if you want to know what a minister thinks, you should talk to a minister. You should read the Bible, and you should be in a Bible-believing church, one that preaches the Word of God, teaches the Word of God, the whole Word of God, the 66 books from the Old Testament to the New Testament. I can't say whether you should be at a Baptist or a Reformed church. I know I have my certain views on other churches, some more emotional rock and roll concert churches. I'm not really feeling that too much, as well as those who teach the prosperity gospel and thinking that everything, when they say, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and therefore they figure that every Christian is going to have a Mercedes Benz and live in the $2 million house. Absolutely ridiculous. Or those who believe that everybody can be healed and everybody will be healed, which is absolutely ridiculous, because the Bible does say it is appointed unto a man once to die, and then the judgment. In other words, we're not going to be saved from all things. We're not going to have all things. And one place that I really realized that this was the case was, think about the 12 men. And I know that I'm veering off of our actual topic, but I just want to get this kind of part out, is that think about the 12 men who followed Jesus. Think about how they died. These were people who ate with Jesus. These are people who traveled with Jesus. These people taught and healed with Jesus. These people were there when he was taken by the guard, and one fought for him, chopped off a guy's ear, and Jesus put it back on and healed him, and saw the miracles happen, had intimate conversations with the Lord, but yet they still died horribly. All the promises that Jesus gave were given while those guys were still walking the earth. So I'm just saying, wherever you are, those who believe in that type of a gospel, that we're supposed to get everything, and money cometh from the east and money cometh from the west and all that stuff, do we think that we're better than those guys? Or the first Christians who were martyred and ripped to shreds by lions and were poor and had all things in common? Like, why would you believe, or why would you go to a church that teaches that everything is yours and everything will be given on this earth? Because as a Christian, I'm looking for the blessed hope. I'm looking for the Lord coming back for his people, for the children of God. Yes, all things work together for the good of those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. But ultimately, in many cases, and in every case, ultimately. So don't think that in every situation, you're going to come out on top as a winner in every single situation. But as it goes, you are more than a conqueror because of Christ Jesus. So anyways, I just wanted to say that. I don't know who needed to hear that. And I'm sorry if I've lost some listeners already. That's okay. There's probably someone who needed to hear that. I have many other episodes that get right into the nitty-gritty. But I just thought I wanted to say that. I know that I say all kinds of different things on some of my episodes, and maybe sometimes I lack on some of that, but yeah. Okay, so here are some questions that I'm going to answer. I'm going to do my best. Being a parent, being a single parent for much of my life. Um, yeah, so let's see. First question. What are the most challenging aspects of being a single father in Canada and the United States? Now, I've only been a single father in Canada, but because our societies are so joint at the hip, especially when it comes to social media and media in general, the ways of life, the things that we buy for ourselves and for our kids, and just the outlook on life that people have tend to be pretty similar. But I can say that the most challenging thing, which is probably the same for women, but they might say it differently, but as a guy, I would say, is being able to nurture. Because I don't believe that we are nurturers like a woman, and it's hard for a father or a mother to fill the void of the other counterpart, the other partner, the other half. I would say, if you have decided to be a parent, husband and wife, and you have kids, obviously, I would say do your best to stay together. Don't, and I know that I'm veering off a little bit, but I'm telling you, the most challenging part, to just get straight to it, is just not having a wife to deal with the issues that your kids and, in their mother in most cases, because sometimes, you get re-involved or whatever it is. But it takes a very special person to love a child that's not your child. And this is different from maybe adopting or literally seeking out to adopt a child. But when you've taken on a new partner or taken on a partner with kids, there's going to be various things in most cases, especially if the parent is still alive and well and walking around. It's you can't really just fill that void. It's not so easy, because something inside the child wants their mother. Something inside a child wants their father, not a father. There are some kids that will just reach out for anything, but there is still just, in most cases, we do look like our parents. We do have mannerisms and, blood types and ways we walk and talk and voices and eyes, eye color and hair. And you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that, glue a child to a parent. Now, I know that there's kids out here who do not look anything like one parent, and that could be the parent that gets left with the kids, or there's some kids out there that don't even look like either, but there'll still be something about them, especially if they're raised by them, that comes from that parent or their parents. But the most challenging is just trying to do it on your own, trying to be both mother and father, which you can't really, like a father, you can't be a mother. You can be a nurturing, loving, interested, active parent, but you can't be someone else. you so that's going to be, I would say, is probably the most challenging. And it's kind of broad, but that would be it. So my advice, even though I'm not on here for advice, is to do whatever you can, mothers and fathers, to stay in your marriage and raise your children. Once you have decided, and I'm sorry, and it's probably not going to sound very politically correct, even though people aren't really saying that these days, I notice, because everybody's politically correct or else these days. Do whatever you can to save that marriage. Once you've decided to have intercourse and have children, procreate, Understand that you are being saddled with that responsibility. That is now your blessing. That is now your talent. And you have a responsibility to do what you need to be a parent, proper, good, godly parent. And most of the examples would be in the Bible. And you can learn these things from old parents, hopefully. Just careful who you pick. Number 2, how did you manage the transition from diapers to potty training, and what tips can you offer? Um, I don't know. I just managing is this is the whole thing I was kind of saying just now is you manage because you do. You manage because you're conscientious, you're responsible. This is what you're doing now. I don't know if it's going to take a month, 2 weeks, 3 days, 2 months, 3 months. You don't know how long it's going to take from transition from diapers to potty training, but it's just something you're doing. And once you've decided in your mind, you've made up in your mind that I am going to help or I'm going to potty train this child, that's just what you're doing. And there's going to be mishaps. There's going to be pee on the floor and sorry, just like, you know what I mean? Just being real about it, because this is the question. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be mishaps. There's going to be mess. There's going to be frustration. But you will get it once you realize, and once the child believes you that this is what we're doing, and you've taken the parental role, they will learn. And they will, obviously there's, the odd chance that there's some child that will take a long time because they are refusing, or maybe there's a developmental issue or something. But most kids, even if they do have developmental issues, will learn properly how to potty train. I mean, we see it all the time. We see severely autistic students who still know how to use the washroom. Now, there's some that don't, but I'm just saying there are a lot. And as I said, I think it's a mindset. It's goes along with the marriage. It's, here I am. Dude's fat now. When you married him, he weighed 186 pounds. Now he weighs 310. Same guy inside, or same girl inside, but outside is a little bit different. Maybe you married her with a 6-pack and she had a couple kids, and now there's stretch marks everywhere, and you can't reconcile how this is the same woman. You know what I mean? Just being real. But going back to the diapers to potty training, I think once you're consistent with whatever your messaging is, and depending on how well you give your instruction, or how well your child is listening, and how well you are serious, and I don't mean serious in a facial, court-martial type of serious, but just once the child knows you are the parent and this is what we're doing, they will catch on in most cases. 3, what strategies have you found effective for handling temper tantrums or difficult behaviors? Well, here's the thing. You have to be able to stand your ground. And I think once a child believes that you're standing your ground, you're being consistent, in most cases, you are able to curb those temper tantrums. Now, there are different types of temper tantrums, because there are the acting out ones, the ones that are typical movie type, where the kid just falls down in the middle of the grocery store and starts screaming because they wanted you to get them jelly beans, and you did, but you got yellow ones only, and there were no red ones and green ones in there, so the kid's freaking out on you. You have to know, and you have to let that child know. If that was the incident, that was the situation, and they're freaking out because they're not getting exactly what they wanted, I'd put them all back. And we're going home. Or we're going to continue shopping and getting what we need for the house, but you're not getting that treat. It's not you bend over backwards and give them what they want, because then that kind of behavior is going to follow them to school, and they'll be acting out at school, you know, taking things and freaking out on teachers and other students because they're not getting their way. So you have to teach them that proper behavior at home, and it calls for consistency. Consistency in knowing that you can't always say yes. You have to say no, and they have to understand what no means. And no means no. Difficult behavior, well, let's keep it real. Every kid's different. So, here's the joke. Some people will have a couple kids, and maybe both those kids are A students. Maybe both those kids potty train very easily. Maybe those kids don't have temper tantrums. And, you maybe credit yourself or your wife or your husband for this. And then you say, you know what? This has been a snap. You have a third child just to find out this child is way different from the first two. Or maybe you only had one. And raising your own child is not like raising your little brother, because this child is way different. Just understand that we are all born and shaped in iniquity. We are all born sinners. We're not born angels. So yes, you might look cute as a little child, and baby might be cute and maybe have a little lisp and talk like this and said they want to eat some spaghetti. And it sounds real cool, but I'm just letting you know that there is a human in that little body. And that human is a sinful being, although created by God. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm just getting a little drink. My Coke Zero is done. Yeah, so just knowing that as your child might be cute, but temper tantrums will be real. Difficult behaviors for certain children may be real, and sometimes there are tantrums that are quiet. So they'll be more of a passive aggressive thing. They'll refuse to smile, and they know that you love seeing them smile. Maybe they refuse to talk to you because now they're having a silent temper tantrum, or maybe you notice their shoulders go up and walk out of the room because they're totally upset and they're flabbergasted that you didn't give them what they want. There are different levels of temper tantrums. They're not all knockdown, drag out temper tantrums. But the best thing I can say when you're dealing with difficult behaviors is to parent with your husband or your wife. And if you don't have a husband and a wife, or a husband and or a wife, anyway, if you don't have a partner and you got to do it by yourself, remember what your parents taught you. And then if they weren't a good example, it's good to talk to someone. Say if you were connected to a church, and this is the whole thing about believers being in a church, talk to someone you see with maybe well-developed children, or children who are well-behaved, or who are well-behaved now but weren't at one point. And those who you trust, those who you know that are living by the word, those whose conversation feels right, those people who treat their spouse right, those who treat their children right, those, you can ask questions. Not a know-it-all person who's tail-bearing and gossiping and all that. Not that person. Even if their children are well-behaved, it might be just for show. But you should be able to lean on older parents, older adults, those who maybe have grown children and they've flown the coop and they have their own children too. Like, talk to grandparents, talk to your parents. If your parents were a good example, maybe there's stuff that you don't know. You're not going to just magically know everything. It doesn't work that way. I know many people try to, like, this person took on and they're like just the perfect mother. And it's like, yeah, but nobody's perfect. Number 4, how do you balance work and parenting responsibilities effectively? Now, here is a big one because I can honestly say that when my kids were young, older two kids were young, I used to do a lot. Um, I wasn't doing much of the cooking, but when I would get home, that'd usually be a time that I would give my wife a break, and I would take on the responsibility of whatever the kid needed. If it's lunch or dinner, well, probably dinner by then. I'm I'm feeding them. I'm bathing them. I'm putting them to bed. I'm changing their clothes. I'm bringing the laundry down to put in the washing machine. Maybe I'm not necessarily doing it, but I'm making sure the place is straightened up. I don't expect everything perfect and straight when I come home. I understand that there's a whole nother world going on in the home, and there's only a certain amount of stuff that the individual staying home with the kids can possibly do on their own. So it's to be helpful, it is to be available. I know you have to provide, but don't take on extras just because, you're trying to social climb or trying to climb at work. Sometimes you need to know that the most help you can be is being an extra hand, being that individual for discipline or a deterrent against bad behavior, or maybe that's a call in the middle of the day to see how everything is going at home. And obviously this is when the kids are really, really small, because after a while they're going to be at school, and they're out of the house. Most kids are out of the house from 8 until 3 at least. So there's a lot of downtime at home, but it's just being available, I would say, is the main thing. And balancing it again, you just have to know when you really do have to be at work, or when you do have to think about changing your job because maybe working until 11 p.m. does not work with your family, or maybe it's not conducive to the age of your children. I mean, you could take on a till 11 type of a job maybe when the kids are way older, but the reality is you do miss out on a lot of stuff. So if you're a parent and you're working overnights, or you're working until 11, and you don't have any time to decompress and relax and kick back and talk about the day and stuff like that, that is something that is really missing in many families, is having that quiet time to talk, and just to talk about the day, not being judgmental or you should have done this. And it's not only about checking on what homework has been done or completed, or who needs help building a tower or a structure or a science project, but also just for the random little things. It's, I guess, they always say that availability is the greatest ability, you know, and just being there, but really being there and being present in the home and in the moment. It's not only your presence sitting in front of the TV watching the sports game, or locked away in the corner of the house reading a book, but it's actually interacting. Because what happens if you pull yourself out of the situation for extended periods of time? What you will find is when you go back to general pop in the house, is that everybody's changed a little bit. Your relationship with your spouse changes a little bit when you do that. The relationship with you and your kids changes when you do that. I'm not saying you don't need your own time. Maybe you need to join a sports club and play a little, but you have to know, honestly, that your family comes first, and that's taking care of the needs of everybody in your family. The mother has responsibilities to her kids and has responsibility to her husband. The husband has responsibility to his wife and responsibilities to the kids. And that's just the way it is. And also divvying up responsibilities of the house. I don't expect, or you shouldn't expect, a woman who's taking care of the kids all day, or say doing various things, drop up, pick up, dinner, breakfast, laundry, whatever it is, to also go and cut the grass and shovel the snow. That's just ridiculous. Or maybe a lot of that stuff is done, or somehow maybe that's their sweet spot and they love to cut the grass, and you just can't for the life of you figure out how to cut the grass properly and you want to stripe it, or she knows how to stripe it and you don't know how to stripe it, and maybe you can't plant the flowers right in the garden, and for some reason every time you do the planting, or you tried it and they all die. I mean, you could read books on it, you could look at a YouTube video, or you can learn, or you could go out and help, and then maybe you could do it next year. But the point is that you got to divvy up responsibilities. And I'm a firm believer in guys taking on the dirty work of things. So dirty work, I mean, I'm a guy who would feed, bathe the kids. If somebody threw up in the house, I'm on vomit duty. If the washroom needs to be properly cleaned out, steamed out, and everything, I would do that. I'm not sending my wife in to do the dirty work in the bathroom. I'm a helping hand in the kitchen, cooking or washing dishes, vacuuming, heavy, heavy work. But then also, I'm not opposed to doing the easy stuff as well. And one thing I will say for guys is that, women, if you do something a certain way, but yet you've left it on your husband to do it this time, then I would say the one thing I would ask you to do, which, I mean, you don't have to listen to me, who am I, right? But allow them to do it their way. If you were, there's one thing I learned from someone who was running a company. They would run it as president and proprietor or whatever it is. But once they were called upon by, say, lower management staff or customer service or whatever it is, you should know that you can, if say someone needs help, I'm saying you're enlisting the help of, say, a manager or an owner or whatever it is, then understand once somebody else puts their hands in the pot, the situation, you have to understand that you have asked for help. So therefore, you shouldn't try to dictate how they help you. You should just take the help. And a lot of times people they want to tell you that they need help, tell you how to help, tell you how to do this, tell you how to do that. And it's like, if you have all that down packed, maybe you should do it yourself. Just saying. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Where are we? How can parents foster open communication with their children at different stages of childhood? The easiest thing is always instill in them that honesty is always the right policy. Always ensure them that you have, your children I'm talking about, always instill and ensure them that you have their best interests at heart. Always instill that just because you're a parent, it doesn't mean you know everything, but understand that you are backing everything up by Bible principles. That God, your Father, and their Father, their Heavenly Father, gives instructions in the scriptures, and these are the instructions that you have been given, and you're giving it to them so that they know that it's coming from a higher power. Even if they don't trust you always, let them start to learn to trust in God. And as I said, simple things like you say for different stages. Okay, so let's go to the number one of that, general well-being and daily life. So here's a question you might ask your kid. And this is just not necessarily something's happened. And this is why constant communication needs to be the best thing. So how do you foster it? It's by always talking to them. And not only talking, but listening to what they have to say. Help your child learn to reason, not argue, not, don't throw down it's my way or the highway, baby, or I brought you in this world, I'll take you out kind of a conversation. No, it's more of a give and take. Obviously, ultimately, you're going to make the decisions that need to be made by you. But sometimes you need to let a child make their own decision. But when they do make their own decisions, you have to let them live with the consequences. Sometimes the consequences are going to be amazing. and sometimes they're going to be horrible. I'm going to get into the general well-being. I'm going to give you these questions you might want to ask. But, here's a simple example. And maybe you can Google it or YouTube it. But look at, I don't know if you know who Steph Curry is as a basketball player. Was an amazing basketball player. There was times when his coach, and this is when he was playing with the Golden State Warriors, he started becoming this amazing, prolific scorer, shooter. And there were times when he would take these ill-advised, ridiculously far three-point shots. And there was times where you can literally see Steve Kerr, his coach at the time, cringing when he was taking these shots. But then it would go in. The ball's up. He's like, oh no, and he'd shout out, and then it would drop in. Slowly, he learned to trust that this guy knew what he was doing. And although it might not be the best shot for the average basketball player to take, he started to learn, the coach, I'm talking about, started to learn that that was the shot that this particular individual could take and make more often than not. So basically, it's allowing them to take their shots. It's allowing them to talk and say, this is what I think I can do. This is what I would like to do. What do you think about that? Maybe there's something you can add to it at different ages. You have to know how much of a rope or how much of leeway you can give a child, judging by their behavior and their maturity in their certain situations. But this is why you need to be regularly in your child's life. If you take off 3 months of dealing with a 5-year-old child, you can do the math. That's a good percentage of their life. And the more time away, it's the more time they'll play. No, I just want to say, but the reality is always staying in contact, always staying in connection and communication so that the hard conversations are easier to have. And there'll be a lot more listening, and there'll be a lot more going back and forth, and there'll be a lot more obedience. There'll be a lot more humbleness from your part. Even though you are the parent, you can still be humble. You can still be meek and mild, and you can be stern when you need to be as well. So the first section. So what kind of things you could ask your child to try to get to dig? So sometimes some people aren't really that great at conversation. So some parents who aren't that good at conversation sometimes say nothing because they don't know what to say, especially us guys. And then sometimes a lot of time moms will just talk, and there won't be much listening. It'll just be instruction. When sometimes you need to let your kid talk, but the way to get them to open up is to, I guess you can, as they would teach you back in the day when you're trying to be a salesman, is to ask open-ended questions so that it's not a yes or no answer. So here'd be a question for general well-being and daily life. Here we go. How have things been going for you lately? Now, you might have to word it differently if the child is 4 or 5 and in kindergarten. But you have to know your kid and know how you could probably reword that. But I mean, maybe just say, how you feeling in general, and I'm sure you'll get an answer. They might just say good. But you could ask that. You could say, what's something you've enjoyed, and this is more open-ended, what's something you've enjoyed doing this week? And they might tell you. It might be the weirdest thing. It might be like, I enjoyed brushing my teeth. I didn't understand that if you do circular motions, and you know what I mean? You never know what you might get out of that. And you can have a 10, 15-minute conversation just on what they enjoyed doing this week or last week, if they can remember, or the weekend, or this evening, Maybe something, I asked them, what did you learn in school today? But actually ask them. Like, I know, like, most people just say, how was school today? Oh, it was good. Okay, all right, go do your homework. And it ended. But sometimes you need to dig a little deeper, because some kids will just say good, and because they know that you'll leave them alone. Sometimes you need to dig a little bit, more often than not. Here's another one. Can you tell me about a time recently when you felt good about something? And that's when you're really, really, older child, or just not even older, like grade 4, they could answer you this. But when was the last time you really felt good about something? Maybe they'll say when I did good on my math test, or maybe when I scored a goal playing soccer, or maybe when I finally hit the right note on the recorder. Maybe you felt good because you and mom and dad and went out and dug around in the garden, or shoveled the snow, all family together, or just took a walk, you know? Here's another one. Can you share with me what your typical day looks like? No, maybe you just don't know the going ons at their school. Like, you drop them off and you pick them up, but you don't know what's happening in all those days. Maybe they can tell you about their day 1 through day 5 at school. You know, really be interested. First of all, I mean, you had these kids, or you had this kid, so you should invest in them with conversation and with their ideas and likes and dislikes. And remember, and you can take it for whatever it's worth to you. Remember, once a man or once a woman, but twice a child. So I'm telling you right now, best thing is invest in your children from their young straight through. Treat them right. And hopefully when you're older, they might treat you right as well. Now, I know that that's not guaranteed, but in most cases, yes, it will happen. Yeah. Where was I? Next question. Number 7. What are some ways to support a child's education, both home and in school? Again, it's being involved. It's being consistent. It's being available. So their education at home, you got to be there hands-on. Tell them how to use the washing machine once they're of age. Tell them why they shouldn't touch the stove when it's hot. Tell them why you shouldn't go through mom's things or dad's things in the room, and respect people's privacy. And tell them why they shouldn't take their brother or sister's shoes or coats, or, all that stuff will translate at school. They'll get themselves in probably a lot less trouble if you don't have them just running around the house like free range chickens. You know what I mean? Like, give them some guidance. And even with homework, don't just say, "Oh, you know what you're doing? Yep, all right." And then the kid gets a B. And it's just that way, or you got C, well, strong C, kid, you really tried, like, get in there, see what they are doing for their homework. Maybe add on a little extra homework for them at home, not as a torture method, but just so you can help them learn, and be positive with it, and let them know that sometimes they have to do a little extra to get a little farther, to put in that little extra work. Give them some responsibility, some sense of achievement in doing these things. Praise them when they get stuff done, right or wrong or half right. As long as they're moving forward, then they're learning something. Next question. I may have to do this in 2 parts. I see I'm already at 40 minutes. 8. How did you navigate the challenges of your children entering adolescence? Honestly, just as another day. You try to keep the lines of communication open. There's certain things you have to instruct. There are certain things that, say, school might teach that you may have to correct, especially if your kids are being educated in the public school system, which I don't advise. If you can get your kid in a Christian-based education for their math, English, science, arithmetic, and all that stuff, whatever, I would say it's best, honestly. But if you can't afford it, or you're unable to do that, then you have to make sure that you stay involved with what teachers are teaching your children. Because think about it. In the morning you wake up. Now, if you're blessed to have a job that you don't start until when they start school, then you're home and you're dropping them off and you're going to work. Or there's some, maybe a couple, 15, 20, 30 minutes in between the two, whatever it is. But your kid is gone from 8 to 3, or maybe 8:30 to 4 or 4:30. And if you're finishing work at 5:36, there's a whole bunch of a day that you didn't see your kids. There's a whole bunch of work you probably have to do on the weekend, so you're not going to get to spend that much time on a Saturday. And if you're going to church on Sunday, then, you know what I mean? Like, there's just not a lot of time you're spending with your kids. And if you're not involved in what others are teaching your child, then you're going to end up with a stranger at some point and understand, well, where the heck did he get this information from? Well, yeah, that was from school. That's what he learned from little Johnny or little Susie or Mr. Robinson. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you really have to stay on top of what they're doing. And that's the best way to navigate any challenges that you're going to have when the child's entering adolescence. If you're not keeping the lines of communication and making sure you're correcting nonsense that are taught by the school system, or expanding on what they've taught, then you're going to have a difficult time unless the child is, exceptionally intelligent in that way, and they read and they want to know for themselves. But if you just have your child out there learning half the information, because remember, there's not only your child that their teacher's teaching, they're teaching probably 25 other kids at the same time. There's not a lot of one-on-one time there. And then you have to understand that your kid is a kid, so therefore they're going to go away with lessons and conversations by the teacher, and sometimes they'll leave with the wrong idea a lot of the time, actually. So always stay in constant conversation with the child. Number 9. What tips can you share for dealing with peer pressure and helping children make good decisions? Well, in this situation, I would say that peer pressure is a funny thing, because a lot of the time it depends on how much your child is a communicator. It happens to be a lot with the child who is closed off, or wants to be alone, or doesn't like to talk, or wants to just play games all day, or video games, or hopefully you can work them out of that stuff and give them other things to do besides the games. You can, or sit down and watch a show that they like, or watch a movie that they like, or encourage them to and put them in front of the Bible to read the Bible at times if you can. Because peer pressure is even more pressure when they have no proper information to base their behaviors off of. So if you've been telling them about peer pressure, and peer pressure comes, or when peer pressure comes, or they're able to talk to you about stuff that they're being pressured into by peers, then knowing that you are there to back them up on whatever decisions they're making, or they have the Bible's learning and teachings to go off of, or what they learned in Sunday school, or from the teaching or preaching, or whatever young youthful ministry you might have them involved in, that they if they have a strong foundation in Christ, or they have a strong foundation at home with their parents, then they can face the world. And if the lines of communication are open with you as a parent, then they have someone to lean on. I know that some people try to keep it, child and parent, and don't speak unless spoken to, and all that stuff. Well, if you have a don't speak until spoken to policy with your kids, they're never going to say anything to you in most cases. They're going to talk to somebody else on the street corner, or a friend who doesn't and may know less than they do. So keep those lines of communication open. 10. We'll just stop right here. How have you addressed issues related to your children's relationships and dating? I try. I try to talk. I've tried to talk to them. Kids don't always make the best decisions, or they necessarily may not pick who you would like to pick for themselves. But best thing you can do is tell and show and communicate what a healthy relationship is. Why being unequally yoked with unbelievers is not a good idea. And back it up with the scriptures, back it up with your word, the word of God, back it up with your life, and explain why. Be open, be an open book. Let them pick your brain. That's the best way I can pick it today. All right, so I'm going to stop it right there. Hopefully you've learned something. Yeah, so that's about it today. Thanks for coming out. This is, you're probably right. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Again, this podcast is brought to you by Spotify for podcasters. I am on Spotify itself, Apple, Amazon. Who else am I on? Like Castbox and iHeart. I'm on a few different providers, y'all. I'm out here. Anyhow, thanks for coming out. Again, this is MCM, and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Take care. See you next time. Or hear me next time. Peace out.